I'm Geoff Baker of the Seattle Times. Welcome to Around the Blogosphere, our daily rapid-fire look at all the happenings and events surrounding the Seattle Mariners in our local blogosphere. And we're going to start today off with an article in Soto Mojo where Keith Myers starts a new feature where he breaks down spring training position battles, and he goes position by position telling us which players are locks, which players are on the bubble, and which players have a little bit of work left to do. And then he adds some commentary at the bottom. I skimmed through it, and I have to agree with pretty much everything that he's concluded there. So check it out, give it a look, and see what you think. Now we move along. Seattle Sports Insider is continuing their look at certain Mariners prospects, basing it off of Baseball HQ's minor league analyst handbook. And today they're looking at a few third basemen, one of them being Matt Mangini. And there's some interesting things in there about Matt Mangini. And Jeff Clark, the main author on the site, comes up, basically he decides that Matt Mangini's glove is probably not up to major league standards at third base. But he projects pretty well as a hitter, and Clark can see Mangini moving on over to first base DH in a role, and possibly in a platoon role in the major leagues. So check that out, see what you think about that. And I happen to agree. I'm not sure that Mangini projects very well as a third baseman in the big leagues, but he certainly has a bat that's worth keeping an eye on. So you might want to check that out and take a look. Then we go on a Lookout Landing, where Jeff Sullivan tells us Mariners fans might have to brace for another year of Doug Fister being Doug Fister. And now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you'll remember Fister went on the disabled list in about late May last year with shoulder fatigue. And he had a 2.45 ERA when he went on the disabled list, but then after that, his ERA dropped down, it shot up, I should say, to 5.24. Now, a lot of people are worried about that, but Sullivan says there's not that much reason to worry, because the more important stats, the peripheral stats, stayed pretty much the same for Doug Fister. Namely, his fielding independent pitching was almost exactly the same before and after he was on the DL. So that tells you that he's still pretty much the same pitcher. He's a guy who gets a lot of ground balls, he's a guy who doesn't walk a whole lot of people, and he's a guy you can pretty much count on having an ERA up somewhere from the low to mid fours. In other words, he's a fifth starter, and that's what Sullivan says we have to brace for in Seattle. It's nothing too bad, nothing too good. It's just Doug Fister, and you know, as a fifth starter, the Mariners could probably do a lot worse. Going on, we have finally Prospect Insider, which has their 2011 draft preview coming up. So this is a good one. They're going to have prospects like Anthony Rendon, guys like Matt Perk, but they're also going to have a bunch of other guys that are in the higher echelons, many of whom you've probably never heard of. So check that out. That should be something interesting for you to read, because obviously the Mariners have the #2 overall pick in the draft this year, and some of those names are going to end up right here in Seattle. And I'm going to end up right at the ballpark in a couple of minutes, so I will see you all out there. Just remember, for all your up-to-date Mariners news and information, keep reading the blog. See you at the park.